season, that momentum seems to have stopped a bit so far.
Yes.
So hopefully it picks up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tsunoda's been doing well as well, which hasn't helped him.
Yeah.
But then, of course, lap 29, we see Max Verstappen pit. That then unleashes Perez to the back of George Russell and immediately gets around him. And then Max Verstappen on fresh tyres. I'm still not quite sure how he manages this now, but pretty much makes up the pit stop deficit in about 10 laps.
Yeah, it was incredible pace. And I really rate Red Bull for what they did. Because thinking on your feet, if you can't overtake on track, just overtake through the strategy. It's absolute, like, it just throw back to when refueling was a thing.
Yes.
You did all the overtaking in the pits. But it was very clever, because I don't think the 3-stop, in the way Max did it at least, was the fastest strategy overall. But in terms of who they had to beat and who they had to get ahead of, they smashed it.
They did do very well in that regard.
Verstappen's race pace on that third stint, I guess, was ridiculous.
Yes, yeah. Did a banging move on Bottas.
Gaining, though Bottas had old tyres, Max had new tyres, and obviously...
And Bottas tax. Yeah.
So, there we go. And Max had closed up the 22-second loss in about, around 10 laps on Russell.
Yes, yeah.
And then as he caught him, Russell then pit for his second stop.
Yeah.
So
yeah, which kind of seemed mad then at that point, because they're like, what's the point of trying to hold him up if you're not even going to hold him up?
Yeah.
That basically, I mean, Red Bull, it was quite clear, wasn't it, later on in the afternoon, they definitely had a much quicker
once
car
Leclerc
than
was
Mercedes.
out.
Yeah, they kind of just...
They always get one,
Exactly. And then, unfortunately, now this is probably one of the biggest talking points from the weekend, wasn't it, as well, Jamie? I mean, this podcast is called Knowing Wheel. We've seen the sport long enough. We know how these things work. I think we can both safely say, don't we? We're talking about the team orders. Let's get two things straight. We don't like team orders, but we know why they're employed, and Checo was not going to win that race either way.
No. And, people say it's early in the season, but clearly the championship will come down to Leclerc or Verstappen. So why would you throw away the 7 points?
And like a lot of people have said there, they're like, but if Checo wasn't fast enough, then they didn't need to tell him to let Max by. They're like, no, that's...
Just apply some circumstance.
Yeah, exactly. Red Bull, they've already had a few reliability issues this year. The last thing you want to do is stress Max's engine out by leaving it in the wake of a car that he doesn't need to be behind.
And he wouldn't have been for long regardless.
Probably not, no. Unless he'd had more DRS issues.
Perez had to do another stop still.
Yes.
Unless he was going to try and go to the end.
I think he could have, because he only pit on like lap 30 odd, didn't he?
But they gifted him the fastest lap.
They did, I was surprised by that. But again...
Yeah, I thought that was nice of Red Bull. They could have easily pitted Verstappen as well.
Yeah.
But Checo got his nice point instead of a race win.
Yeah, I'm sure he's happy with that.
And the fastest lap bonus, I'm sure he's happy with that.
It's probably about 30 pesos for Checo, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I mean, understandably on the other hand, Checo not happy with that. To be fair, his whole race was kind of screwed, wasn't it, through strategy? He was hung out to dry on the first stint. But there's...
And he wasn't even, he was unlucky, but then he is the second driver.
Yeah.
If he doesn't admit that, he's a bit deluded, I think.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because no Formula 1 driver should ever admit they're the second driver. That's 101 of racing. And I'm sure Checo felt within himself he probably did have a good shot at that race victory. Had he been able to sort of do a completely his own race, I don't think he would have won, but he would have probably been closer to Max. And I'm sure he was just a bit frustrated with it, wasn't he? Which is completely fair at the end of the day, but there's rules in his contract that stipulate if the team tell him to let Max by, he lets Max by.
And he is only in the sport because Red Bull agreed to make him Verstappen's second driver.
I think he would have found a seat elsewhere after 2020.
Yeah, he probably would have found a seat, but not for 2021, I don't think.
I wouldn't have been so sure.
Well, it was the only choice was Albon or Perez, wasn't it? Like, everything else was confirmed.
Yeah, this is Formula 1, Jamie. There could have been plenty of changes.
Yeah, anything can happen, and usually does.
Exactly.